So thank you for that. Did I give you enough time to pull up are we ready to go? All right. Let's open up our usual way, please. I open my heart to receive from the Word of God. God's promises are true, and they are true for me. Last week, I asked you if you'd heard that old saying, time and tide waits for no man. And in fact, that was the lyrics in that C.C. Winan song that we sang, talking about the world believes that tide is unchangeable, right? And, the idea, when we say tide in this context, we're talking about the events of life that seem unstoppable, the things that are just going to happen, right? It's just going to happen, right? And this was a quote, by the way, back in the 1300s by a poet, and it's still true today, this statement, especially when you think about tide, you think about literally water. We talked about this some last week. Man, just again this weekend, I rode with one of my daughters on my motorcycle up through Wonder Valley. Just so gorgeous through there. The river's just busting. And I'm telling you, water goes where it wants to go. It's going to go. It doesn't matter who's in the way or what's in the way. It's just going. And it was at flood stage, and it was almost at flood stage, and it was indiscriminate. It just goes where it's going to go. And it's coming, and it waits for no one. Well, maybe that's not true completely, because we talked about last week, I shared this little quick story here about, that was a picture of one of our times to the Central Coast. That right there was taken at Pismo, and Pismo Beach. And at that particular time, I just stared at the water for a while, and I noticed the tide coming in and going out, and coming in and going out. And it's so predictable. It's like a pendulum. It's literally just swinging and swinging, and it comes in and goes out, and it seems like it just has a mind of its own, and it's going to do what it's going to do. But I believe the Lord spoke to my heart at that time, and he said, see that tide? I tell it when to come in. And that was powerful, because that spoke to me in places of my life where I needed to hear that. And so today, I want to kind of pick up on that. I want to share yet another story in the Bible where we see this concept being displayed powerfully. And it's a very intentional story, and it has intentional details. And I want to share those details with you. So it is the story of the Israelites being delivered from slavery. So a little bit of recap of the story. The Exodus story really began in Genesis. We got to go back and we got to look at the man named Joseph. Remember that man named Joseph? And we know his whole story. I won't recap the whole story, but man of faith, a man that was tried, a man that was falsely convicted, falsely accused, left and right. His own brothers threw him in a cistern, left him to die, but then he ended up getting sold into slavery, and got, anyway, on and on and on. I don't want to get bogged down with that story. Read about it. It's in the latter part of the book of Genesis if you don't know the story of Joseph. But he was a man falsely accused, in prison. And when God said go, he went from prison to second in command of Egypt when God said go. Just remember that too, by the way. And so he did a lot for Egypt. He was a great leader. He was brilliant. He helped them prepare for the famine, and he had great renown there in Egypt. The book of Exodus begins with the idea that then time passed, and now a Pharaoh was in charge of Egypt that did not remember Joseph and got caught up in his own stuff and really didn't have any feelings one way or the other about any kind of loyalty towards Joseph or his people, the Israelites. Instead, it's quite the opposite. He began to notice how numerous they were and how they were multiplying. And his advisors said, hey, these Israelites are becoming so numerous, they're a danger. We need to get control of this. And so they got nervous about that. Then he put out edicts, and we know the terrible edict that was put out for them to go into the Israelite homes and throw out the firstborn boy. They said if it's a girl, no problem, but the boys, kill them, because he was very nervous about how numerous the Israelites were, and they were afraid that they would overthrow them out of that fear became, that develops into the story of Moses, right? Did you know Moses, by the way, is an Egyptian name? It's not an Israelite name. He was given that name because it means drawn out. He was drawn out of the water. Anyway, so Moses was hidden in a little in a box that was made to float, and he was hidden. And Pharaoh's daughter found him in the reeds there by the water, and he grew up in the Egyptian household, almost like a prince. And yet he had a calling on his life. He was a Hebrew, and God had a calling on his life. He was later used, as we know, to be an instrument of freedom, of freeing those Israelites. Read about the whole story. It's powerful. Or watch the Ten Commandments movie, whichever. That's how a lot of us get our theology, from the C.C. DeMille's movies, right? By the way, I don't think Moses looked like Charlton Heston. I'm just going to give you a little spoiler alert there. Tan and blue eyes and all that. I'm not so certain about that. But we know the story. So God heard, my point is, over and over, there were generations of Israelites that were enslaved and were forced into rough, hard labor, and they built many of the palaces and built a lot of what was built there in Egypt was built on slave labor, and they were driven hard. It was cruel. The Bible says it was cruel what they did to the Israelites in slavery for many, many years. In fact, a whole generation of Israelites were born into slavery, and that's all they ever knew. Yet each night, I can use my imagination, each night at camp, when they're trying to rest and recuperate and rejuvenate for another hard day of work the next day, I can hear them around the campfire singing, "My deliverer is coming. My deliverer is coming. Someday we'll be free from all of this." And so the Bible says that God heard their cry. He chose this man named Moses, gave Moses a plan with a promise to bring them out of that slavery, bring them into a new place, a place of their own, a land flowing with milk and honey. In other words, deliverance, healing, breakthrough, right? What a promise it was. It was a great hope. We're going to the other side, and it's bound to be better over there. Amen? It was a pilgrimage they were going to make. Has it ever occurred to you that pilgrims have a one-way ticket? You know, the pilgrims that came over to America, they did not have a return flight ticket. It was a one-way. They booked a one-way. The whole idea of pilgrimage is the idea of going from one place of brokenness and hurt and lack to a great place that's better. Amen? And I'm going there. We wouldn't go there. We wouldn't want to go there if we weren't convinced it was going to be better. Right? And so that's what we see here. We're going to the other side, and it's bound to be better over there. Now, fast forward to Joshua. He was the one that replaced Moses as a leader. The promise is now coming to fruition. God had led them through the desert, revealed himself to them, and now they were about to go the first step into the promised land, and God brought them to a major impasse. A raging river that was actually at flood stage. Kind of reminded me of what I saw yesterday in the Kings River, man. It's getting so close to the road, you almost wonder if it's going to go over the road. There was a raging river standing between them and their promised land, between them and their breakthrough with, the healing, all the things that we're praying for in our church, like Twyla was praying after that one song. Can you imagine God bringing you to a place where you could see it just over there. But yet there's this major impasse in the way. It was a major impasse, all right? It was a raging river. Here's the scene. Let's look at it in Joshua 3. Now the Jordan is at flood stage, all during harvest. Yet as soon as the priests who carried the ark reached the Jordan and their feet touched the water's edge, the water from upstream stopped flowing. It piled up in a heap a great distance away at a town called Adam in the vicinity of Zarethan, while the water flowing down to the sea of the Arabah, that is the Dead Sea, was completely cut off. So the people crossed over opposite Jericho. Okay, so they They see Jericho. That's the first city that God's going to lead them to conquer and use as part of their promised land. And it's standing on the other side of this river. So let me give you a few little factoids about Jordan. You know how I kind of nerd out on these things. The Jordan at flood stage, okay, that's impressive when we read it, but here is literally a picture of the Jordan at flood stage. That's not the King's River, that's the Jordan at flood stage. That's what it looks like at that, and the scholars believe that this was taken in the general vicinity of where the Israelites crossed over. At that point, the average velocity of the water is 10 miles an hour. That doesn't seem like very fast in a car, right? But let me tell you, when you got a bunch of water moving that fast, you know, that's pretty dangerous. That's moving. It was the width of it was approximately a mile, and the average depth was about 28 feet. Now, so that's the Jordan River. Now, notice the Dead Sea reference that we went over a minute ago. In this, you see some intentionality here. So here's the Dead Sea, here's the Jordan River flowing down. They're on this side right here, and over there is Jericho. That's the promised land. That's the first town, the first city in their promised land, and they were standing across this river looking at it. There's intentionality here because the Dead Sea, down there at the bottom of that picture there, of that diagram, is literally 1,410 feet below sea level. 1,410 feet. In fact, here is a modern picture of the Dead Sea. It's very, very salty. It's so salty that you can literally, I mean, if you Google it when you get home, have some fun with it. There are resorts around the Dead Sea because there's healing. It's very, very, very salty. You can literally go out there and float on your back. If you Google the Dead Sea, you'll see pictures of people floating on their back on the water because it's so salty. Well, one of the reasons is because it's so low. Okay, there's a reason I'm bringing all this up. That, again, the Dead Sea, 1,410 feet below sea level, right? Well, that shows that this river, it was moving. It was moving downhill, very seriously downhill. So now you not only have a river at flood stage, but now you have gravity working against you. And for it to go from the high point down to 1,400 feet below sea level. I mean, just imagine that. That's down there. That river has gravity working against it. My question is, why would God do this? Why would God do this? I mean, if it were me, if I was going to take my people to the promised land, it seems like I would have done it at a time where the river was dried up to a shallow creek, right? Well, I'm going to lead you to the promised land, but right now the river's at flood stage, so we can't go right now, so just camp out. I'll give you manna for the day. You know, it'll be cool. We'll just wait until the river's, we'll just kind of tiptoe across it, you know, when it's a little shallower, right? Or better yet, take them on a whole different route that didn't even involve a river, right? Hello, God, did you miss that detail? Did God miss that detail? In fact, scholars believe that these right here, these are called fords. Even at flood stage, there were places where, because of the elevations and what was going on with the land there were places that would have been very, very shallow, maybe just a couple of feet deep at that point, that they could have somehow or another got across at that point. But no, God did not lead them there, did he? He led them at this place where they had to trust in him. And by the way, if I had time, I would talk about this was the first time in their journey that they had to meet him halfway with obedience and faith. Because before that, all the way through the desert, they got to the Red Sea. That was the first major crossing that they did. They crossed the Red Sea, and God turned that back. But he did that before they got there. Just Moses had to just hold out his staff. Remember that? And he got tired, and they had to help him, right? And that was by the way, that was during the war too. But he held out his staff, and the water passed, and then the water moved, and then they crossed across the Dead Sea or the Red Sea. But in this case, the water didn't even turn back until they stepped into the river with the Ark of the Covenant. That's another message for another day. But I propose that God did not miss this detail. I propose to you that every last detail was part of God's plan. He did it with intentionality. And I propose to you that the Israelites were exactly where God wanted them. You need to understand that. You are exactly where God wants you. Sometimes people come up to me and say, Pastor this, Pastor that, I feel like I'm painted into a corner. This is that. And I'll say to them, I've often said this to people, wow, congratulations, you are right where God wants you. And, sometimes they don't want to hear that. They want me to just, bippity boppity boo, and here's your solution. But God, sometimes it allows things to get stacked up against us, doesn't he? Painted into a corner where we have no choice but to trust him. He was teaching them faith, yes, but I believe it was even more than that, because I just submit to you that God's intent in leading them to the Jordan was to show his glory. Did you know that God will allow circumstances to stack up in your life where he wants to show his glory? Why does he need to show his glory? We went over this on Wednesday night. Is God insecure? He just wants all the attention? No, because when he is glorified, we see and the world sees. Amen? So I just ask you, want to take a breath at this point and ask you, why would your story be any different? Why would my story be any different? See, here's the thing, guys, and I mentioned this last week. Many of us, most of us, like movies with drama, right? Where, the most memorable storylines that we think of, the movies that really get us are the ones with conflict, right? The odds are stacked up, drama builds, where the hero has all the odds stacked against him or her, with seemingly no way out, and somehow miraculously he's able to pull through, often at the last minute, right? We remember those movies. Yet at the same time, if we're honest, if we could write our own stories, they wouldn't be quite like that, would they? We would always get our way. We would always get the green light. We would always get the parking space in front, right? Our kids would cooperate. We'd always have money. Our plans would succeed. Okay, the movie reviews are in for that, and guess what? Boring. 2 enthusiastic thumbs down. Nobody would pay to see that movie, right? So I want to ask you a question. Are you living God's story, or are you still trying to write your own? Good question. We all need to ask ourselves that. Because I just submit to you that we each have our Jordan River. We each have our obstacle. We each have something that God has allowed us to come face to face with. Backed into a corner. And these obstacles have come between us and our destiny. I want to let that settle in. God has allowed obstacles to come between us and our destiny. And I want to ask you another question. What is your obstacle? What is your Jordan River? Could be an attitude. Could be a lack of faith. Maybe it's just stubbornness. A sin that we keep falling into. Maybe it's just resentment, unforgiveness. Maybe we just believe our own assessment of ourselves over what God says. Guess what that is? That's pride, guys. I recently rewrote my testimony, and I have a section of that. That God showed me that for most of my life, I believed my own assessment of myself over what he says. And basically, I'm telling God, I know better than you. And that's pride. I know it doesn't seem like a poster child for what pride is, somebody bashing themselves. But pride is just confidence in the flesh in any way. That's a biggie. That'll stand in front of me and my destiny. Are you kidding? What is your Jordan River? What is your obstacle? See, our reaction, the way that we react in the face of that obstacle, our frustration, our attitudes, how we treat others, the things that we say about our faith, they tell more about our faith than anything that we profess on a Sunday morning. We can come here and sing all these songs, and God's going to do miracles and all that great stuff, man. We walk right out of here, and we start getting attitude, First time we get a setback, oh, I knew it was going to be this way. It's always this way. Well, whatever. That says more about our faith than anything that we claim on Sunday morning. Amen? Man, you're praying for your unsaved loved ones. You're praying for breakthrough. You're praying for healing. And yet at the same time, we're saying, who am I kidding? This is the way it's always going to be. That says more about your faith than anything that you profess on a Sunday morning. And by the way, that goes for me as a pastor. It's like somebody praying for rain, and two people praying for rain, and one person shows up with an umbrella, and the other one says, you're crazy. It's sunny. What are you doing? Well, we've been praying for rain. Well, but it's not raining, though. Look, it's sunny skies. Well, yeah, but we prayed for rain, so God's going to send rain. I mean, are you one of those that packs an umbrella, or are you one of the other ones? Right? I love that song. I keep on talking about that song we just sang, but I love that song by C.C. Winans. I believe it, and I will see it. God said it, I believe it. So I keep on going. See, because my reaction in the face of that obstacle says more about my faith. My attitude in the face of that obstacle says more about my faith. My belief, the things I give into, the things I let my mind go to, that says more about my faith than anything that I profess on a Sunday morning. And so I want to say to you that when we become doubtful and cynical, we are telling God that we believe the circumstances are bigger than He is. There's a reason why the Bible is intentional about stating that this river was at flood stage. Why did the writer throw that in? He didn't have to even throw that in. Like, you could cross a river and that'd be awesome. That'd be enough. But it specifically says the river was at flood stage. This was an immovable object, an immovable obstacle. Can you imagine? And it's going down to the Dead Sea, man. That means it's sloped. That means it's moving. God is trying to do something glorious, guys, and miraculous in our lives, and we often fight Him with our attitudes and our lack of faith. I want to say that again. God is trying to do something miraculous and glorious in our lives, and we often fight Him with our attitudes and lack of faith. And here's another thing about that. Lack of faith is contagious. Lack of faith is contagious. See, God had no intention of this being just some non-eventful crossing of a river, going into the promised land. He had a very important lesson to teach His people and us today about trusting Him in the face of insurmountable odds. Again, I ask, what are your insurmountable odds? What are you facing? Maybe it's hardship. Maybe it's sickness, your illness. Maybe it's financial struggles. Man, and you just don't know where the relief is coming from. That's the same mindset. Can you imagine these people walking right up to a river going, did we take a wrong turn here? What's going on here? God wants us to go through that? I can't go through that. I can't figure out my finances. I can't figure out my future. I got decisions I need to make. I don't know what to do here. Okay, God has an important lesson for us thousands of years later after this story, because He's still the same God yesterday, today, and forever. But see, it's even bigger than this idea that lack of faith is contagious, because now I submit to you that God's glory always has a ripple effect. Always has a ripple effect. I talk about that a lot when I'm counseling people. I call it the ripple effect of healing. You know, you throw a pebble into the water, a pond. Imagine a still pond, nice and calm. You drop a pebble in it, there's a splash, right? That's the impact. And that splash, that impact is our lives, God doing something in my life. I think back to my sobriety story. That pebble was dropped in on March 11th, 1998, when I took my last drink, and I made that commitment on the next day, March 12th, to turn my life and my will over to the care of God. That was a splash. It was a big splash. Major point of impact. And then the ripples go out. And then guess what happens? As I get sober, as I start committing my life to the Lord, those ripples go out. All of a sudden, God begins to heal broken relationships. God begins to heal and restore me. I got a place to live. He restored me financially. I was able to somehow or another make it while basically supporting 2 households. I could have never done that. You talk about a raging river. That raging river was right in front of me, and I came to that impasse, and I had to make a decision to go forward or to give in to my fear, just like they did. And the ripples kept on going out over time, over time, over time. God restored me to my daughters. I became like a single dad when I had them almost half the time. On and on and on. And that was yet another piece of the puzzle of finding myself. I absolutely loved me and my daughter's daddy. That's a ripple effect of healing. I became the father to them that I never had been up to that point. I was there, but I wasn't there. See, God began to heal my relationships. And then 5 years later, God brought Dee Dee to my life, and I proposed to her. She's sitting right over there about where Jerry and Ruth are. From this store in this church, I proposed to her right there in church. And then I adopted her 2 daughters. Maddie's here right now. Ripple effect of healing. Ripple effect of healing as it goes out. And then now I'm a papa of 6. And now I get to love on those kids. Love them like my own. They are my own. The ripple effect of healing. God restored, and then some. I lost so much back in those days when that pebble hit, when that splash hit. I was without anything. And God restored, and God restored, and God restored, and I'm better off, so much better off now than I was then. Ripple effect. Relationships healed. People come into the Lord. Now, years later, I can share with the drunk on the street, hey, I was you back in those days. And now I can tell them, give them some of the hope that I myself discovered. Ripple effect of healing. See, God indeed pushed that water back and dried that riverbed up, and they crossed over on dry land. By the way, here's an Instagram shot of that. Somebody had a smartphone. They took a picture of it. They're celebrating there. But see, it was even more than that. I want to show you what I mean by that in Joshua 4. Let's pick up the story. When the whole nation had finished crossing the Jordan, the Lord said to Joshua, choose 12 men from among the people, 1 from each tribe, and tell them to take up 12 stones from the middle of the Jordan. See, now they had to go back out into the middle of the Jordan and get these rocks that were there and carry them over with you and put them down at the place where you stay tonight. So Joshua called together the 12 men he had appointed from the Israelites, 1 from each tribe, and he said to them, go over before the ark of the Lord your God into the middle of the Jordan. Each of you is to take up the stone on his shoulder, according to the number of the tribes of the Israelites, to serve as a sign among you. In the future, when your children ask you, what do these stones mean? Tell them that the flow of the Jordan was cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord. When it crossed the Jordan, the waters of the Jordan were cut off. These stones are to be a memorial to the people of Israel forever. So, if I had time, I'd talk about the fact that not only did he part the water so they could cross over, now he's holding it back long enough for them to do all of this. 12 different people got to go out and get 12 stones. They're going to erect these monuments, rock monuments, and God held the water back all that time. Why? Because look what God's doing here. See, this wasn't just about the people crossing the river. This was about their children and their children's children. We need to be concerned about this next generation, guys. That must be our concern. We need to get out of our heads, stop with the attitude, and realize this world needs Jesus now more than ever. And we're not going to reach them with a hammer of our opinion. We're not going to reach them with another clubbing them over the head. You're doing wrong. You're doing this. You can't dress that way. You can't do this. You can't do that. We've got to show them the love of Christ. A world is watching. Our kids are watching. Did you know that your kids are watching your actions and your reactions during a crisis? Did you know that? Here's the problem, guys. If we see church attendance, Bible reading, devotional time with the Lord, prayer, if we see these things as optional, your kids will see them as unnecessary. If you see the things of the Lord as optional, your kids will see them as unnecessary. Thus the culture that we live in right now. And now they're going to grow up with this unnecessary view of God. Guess what their kid's going to, it's going to diminish into nothing. We are the generation now that can change the course of this. And you have the ability to impact your children and your children's children with your attitude about who God is and your trust in Him and how you treat your marriage, how you treat your spouse, how you treat finances, how you treat all the things that you worry about, all of that. We have a way right now, we are poised to impact this world for Christ. I'm talking about your neighbors. I'm talking about your friends. I'm talking about the world. They are watching too. What will they be saying in years to come when they look back at you? What will they be saying about your faith? Good question. See, God had a plan this whole time. And after they crossed the Jordan, God instructed them to erect these rock monuments on the other side to remember what the Lord had done, right? He wanted them to remember. He wanted their children to remember. He wanted their neighbors to remember, the world to know that there was a God on the throne. How many know that this world, this culture that we needs God more than ever? They need to know that there's a God on the throne. We have so many dysphorias right now. So much confusion in this world. Are you kidding me? All this stuff that we see, that we just mock and we hate and we have these opinions about it, this represents desperately hurting and confused people that need the love of Christ. Man, I was convicted recently when I was in a place when there were just a lot of younger people and they looked different, and there's this whole trend these days where it become more and more ambiguous, where you don't even know if they're a male or a female and all that. And I was getting attitude. I was getting attitude about that. The Lord checked me right then and there. It's like, you think your attitude is going to lead them to me? That was hard. I had to repent right then and there. I was at the gym, by the way. I repented in the gym. It's all right. Different kind of sweating. Because I want to be part of that generation that understands the importance of this. Look what happened in this story. In Joshua 5, it starts out this way, but when all the Amorites kings west of the Jordan and all the Canaanite kings along the coast heard how the Lord had dried up the Jordan before the Israelites until they had crossed over, their hearts melted in fear, and they no longer had the courage to face the Israelites. See, God had a plan. Do you see the intentionality of all this? Do you see that? It wasn't about moving the river. It wasn't about crossing over where it was comfortable. This is important. There are surely going to be times in our Christian life when it seems like we are having to wait, or worse, where we're having to walk across a wide and deep part of a river. It's hard and the waters are tumultuous. It seems very illogical and inefficient to us. Surely there must be a quicker and easier way. Why hasn't God acted yet, Lord? I don't understand why you haven't restored me in this yet. Or we believe this is so popular, I must have missed God on this. How many have said that? I have. I must have missed God. We reject the whole river experience altogether. Oh, I must not supposed to be here. In the name of Jesus, I just reject this. God wouldn't have. Well, really? Hold on. See, we got to understand that God has a plan, and His plan is greater than ours. And by the way, we're in good company when we struggle with these things. Look what it says in Isaiah about the Israelites. But Zion is another way of representing the Israelites, God's people. The Lord has forsaken me. The Lord has forgotten me. Look at this. Can a mother forget the baby at her breast and have no compassion on the child she has born? That's called hyperbole, as exaggeration to prove a point. I mean, what a statement. Can you imagine a mother that's breastfeeding a child, and you look down and go, hey, what are you doing? I don't know you. What's this? I mean, it's ridiculous. So God's using hyperbole there, but he says, even though she may forget, even if the 1 in a trillion chance that some woman that has like a short-term memory loss or something, you look down and, hey, do I have a kid? What are you doing? I will not forget you, he says. See, I have engraved you on the palm of my hand. Did you know your name's tattooed on his hand? Your walls are ever before me. I always love that last part, and I leave it in because, first of all, it's part of that verse. But what does that mean? It almost seems random. Like it's thrown in there. What does that mean? Your walls are ever before me. I believe that says God's way of saying, you know those walls you're trying to rebuild? You know that security you're trying to get, that you're trying to figure out your future, that thing that you're trying to build in your life? I see it. I know where you are. I know your worries. I know you're trying to build this. I know you're trying to build your future. I know you're trying to answer some questions. I see it. They are ever before me means it's right here. I see it. I have your name inscribed on the palm of my hand. I can't forget you. And look at the grace there. When you ever see the grace in that scripture, God knows about our doubts and fears, and he meets them with grace. If I was God and my own people who I have done all this for said, the Lord has forsaken me, the Lord has forgotten me, man, I think I'd have a few choice words for them. You knuckleheads. I probably should forget you, No, there's grace. I can't forget you, he says. There's no way I could possibly forget you. I have your name inscribed on the palm of my hand every time. It's right here. Your name's right here. Oh, yeah, Chris. Oh, yeah. And I know what you're trying to build in your life. I know what your concerns are. See, God didn't just want them to cross the river. If crossing the river was all it was about, he would have just done it in some other way that was easy, right? The crossing of the river, guys, was not about accessibility. It was so much bigger than that. And God wanted them and us to think bigger. Amen? Man, God, I don't know if this is gripping you. It's gripping me as I speak this. This isn't the first time I've talked about these notions. We went through the study of the book of Joshua in the past on Wednesday nights. And a lot of this stuff, man, those Wednesday nights were turning into sermons, man. It was powerful as we went through the book of Joshua. And these nuggets were displayed of what God was doing there so that we, thousands of years later, could know that there is a God in heaven that hears us and knows our plight and knows our situation and has a plan. And sometimes he allows us to be packed into a corner where all we can do is trust in him. And he wants to come through, just like I love coming through. I love coming through for my kids. I love that. I loved getting them something that I knew that they really wanted. I loved have that surprised look on their face. And now I get to relive it all over with my little grandkids. That look on their face, just love that. How much more does your Heavenly Father love giving you good things? How much more does he have that promised land on the other side of this obstacle? He just wants you to be honest and address that obstacle and release it to him so that he can move it back and do a miracle and move it back so you can cross right over. But see, they had a point of obedience and belief they had to face. They could have easily run and said, I'm not stepping in that. Are you kidding me? And take the Ark of the Covenant with me? Are you kidding? This is our valued. Whoever has the Ark of the Covenant wins, all right? I mean, the presence of the Lord was in that Ark of the Covenant, and they had to walk with it into the river. Are you kidding me? Well, in the same way, God is with us. He is with us as we step into that raging river. Amen. Now we have the presence of the Holy Spirit in us as believers instead of the Ark of the Covenant. I like this quote. Nelson Mandela said it this way: there is no passion to be found playing small and settling for a life that is less than the one that you are capable of living. Dwight D. Eisenhower said this way: there are no victories at bargain prices. So this is, we're talking today about God's plan. We're talking about his glory. God wanted the Israelites and their future generations to see and remember. And plus, he wanted the world to see. And we need to remember that, guys. The world is watching. God used this story to wake up the surrounding nations. And again, I ask you, why would it be any different for us? I believe As I wrap this up, guys, I believe with everything in me, the table is being set for a revival. We're seeing it. We're seeing it. We're feeling it. It's coming. It's coming. There is a world that is hurting all around us, and this world needs to know that there is a sovereign God who is mighty to save. So I just submit to you that God has a reason for the river. Are you praying for breakthrough? Are you praying for healing? Are you praying for a miracle? Guess what? I believe that God has heard you and has a plan that is much bigger than you and your situation. I believe that. And I believe that when God moves, there will be absolutely no doubt. And I believe there will be a ripple effect. You remember that? Ripple effect going out. So you just fill in the blanks in your life. What are you praying for? What are you waiting for? Direction in your future? Victory in a struggle? I'm going to leave you with this. I like what-if statements. I ask a lot of what-if statements. What if, just what if, the way God is working in your situation isn't just about you? I'm just saying. What if? What if? What if all of this isn't just about this thing that you can't get your mind past? You keep hitting this wall. You keep hitting this wall. Whatever it is. What if it's much bigger than all of that? By the way, it probably is. Look at this quote. C.S. Lewis said, "Believe in God like you believe in the sunrise, not just because you can see it, but because you can see all it touches." You think about that? Sunrise. You don't have to actually look at the sun when it rises. You know, especially if you go over to the East Coast like we did back in 2018. Dee Dee and I touched our toes in the Atlantic Ocean and were completely thrown off when we saw the sunset on the wrong side. Right? It doesn't matter where the sun is you see what it touches. You know, you look at the daylight. And it's the same way with God. Believe in that, guys. God is here today, and I believe he would be asking you, just trust me. Just like he told them at that river. What? This thing's at flood stage, Lord. Hello? Did you miss this detail? Just trust me. Amen? Just trust me. Whatever it is. So you know what I asked you earlier, what is your obstacle? You know what it is that's before you. Let's commit ourselves to prayer right now as a group. Father, we just lift this up to you, Lord. God, you know exactly what it is that we keep banging our head against. You know exactly what it is, Lord, that keeps coming back and kicking our tail, Lord. It's a wall. It's an impasse. And we see our promised land. We see that breakthrough on the other side, Lord. We believe that we are on the cusp of something powerful, something momentous, Lord, in the history, literally, Lord, in the history of this world, God. We believe that we are at a key time where we are going to see a powerful move of your Spirit, Lord. Not only, God, in the world, in the culture, but even our own lives, Lord. I believe that you want to start showing yourself in a mighty, manifest way, Lord. I've seen it. I've seen it in some lives that I touched, Lord. Even in this last couple of weeks, I've seen your miraculous power at work, God. Restoring marriages, Lord. Restoring hope. Restoring hurts, Lord. Healing hurts, God. I've seen, Lord, physical healings, Lord. I've seen your hand, Lord. I believe that you are about to move in a mighty way. And you've brought us to this impasse, Lord. And it's decision time for us, Lord. Will we trust you? Will we step into that water? Will we be able to push through this obstacle, Lord? Because the truth is, this obstacle, Lord, is usually us. It's usually us, Lord. It's usually our attitudes. It's not about circumstances. We know, God, that stress, for instance, it's partly circumstances, but it's more than that. It's how we react to the circumstances. So much of it, Lord, is an inside job. Help us, Lord, to have the courage to trust you and step into that river, Lord. And we pray, God, that you would do a mighty, restorative work. God, we believe there is a difference in relief and restoration. We have turned to so many things, Lord, for relief, for quick relief, God. And that's just, it's not even just addictions. I'm talking about just social media, buying things, Lord, just browsing, just whatever, letting our minds go, whatever it is, TV, whatever, God, busyness. We look for relief. There's a difference in relief and restoration. You are the only one that can restore. We lay these things down now to you, Lord, in Jesus' name. Thank you, Lord. Amen. Amen. 11:16, I went a minute over. Be sure to put that on your time card. We'll get you paid for that. Bless you. We are dismissed. I will pray with you. I feel like somebody wants me to pray with them. If you want a prayer, I'll be up here waiting for you. Otherwise, bless you and have a great day.
Sweet Jesus, my Savior, you are